Hello, in this video we're going to discuss the SpaceShip Aerospace Fighter Convoy over Earth Part 1. So firstly I have to straighten out people's impression of what it is they're in fact seeing. So I'll just point out some obvious observations so you can decide for yourselves what it is you're in fact looking at. When people describe a chain of satellites, they're not satellites, they're spaceships. So firstly we'll discuss the composition. So in the lead is Griffin. Now Griffin is the aerospace fighter that was observed by some pilots who are flying Super Hornets, and they videoed Griffin. So Griffin's in the lead, and behind Griffin is 7 transports. Then you notice an obvious space that's different to the spacing between the transports, and in that gap is an aerospace fighter escort. Then there's another gap, then 7 more transports, and it continues like this in each of the packets. Right at the very rear is 2 spaceships, aerospace craft. One is a combat chassis, and the second is an aerospace fighter escort. So the combat chassis is also providing escort. So there are 2 packets. So you see one chain of spaceships, and then there's a space, and then another group. Alright, that's the second packet, the second group. So why they're not satellites that you're observing? Okay. Firstly is the vector changes are dramatic. So if you look at the location where it's been observed and filmed, if you look at the date and time and then plot on a map the second sighting and all the sightings, and then draw a line to each one, you'll see that there's a change in vector. So there's obvious maneuvers involved in this. Satellites cannot do that. They can only get into position, and they have to remain where they are. They only have just enough fuel to get into position. Right. The size and shape is larger than a satellite, so not many people have seen satellites from Earth. You have to really stare at the sky for a while, and then eventually you'll see an object. They appear tiny in comparison. So this convoy of spaceships, significantly bigger, stands out. Everyone can see them. You can see that they're bright, they're large, and that they're moving together. So you're observing them because of their size, their shape, and spacing and movement. Right. The direction does not conform to rotation of the Earth with a southward direction. Now that's what I observed. They were heading south. So for orbit, it's always following the rotation of the planet. Okay, so there's 2 kinds of orbit. There's geosync orbit, and there's a second one. So one goes around the planet and follows a point in the ground. Another orbits the planet in accordance with the planet rotation. But in fact it's stationary and the planet's rotating. It's the planet that's moving. As well as orbit, there is low orbit and high orbit. High orbit is out past the moon. With most satellites, they're normally high orbit, or they're between Earth and the moon. So that's the thing about it. people are misidentifying them and saying, oh, it's SpaceX. Okay, the size of the object is considerably bigger than the rocket that they're launching with. It's impossible to have that kind of reflection from space, from a rocket that size. Impossible. If the whole rocket went up there, then you'd see a very tiny tube. It would be noticeable, but just barely. You'd have to be looking for it. So these objects, 400 meters long, some of them. Combat chassis, 1,500 meters long. Holy chassis is 3,000 meters long. AEROSPACE fighters are 400 meters long. Transports are about the same size as an aerospace fighter. So that's a bit about what it is that you're observing. They're not here to invade Earth or anything. These are from heaven, these spaceships, and the people on board. So they're not here aggressively, they're here to visit someone. So it's a monumental time for humankind. It is extremely historic what it is you're witnessing. And you've got a front row seat. I'm the Archangel Daniel, and I'm from heaven.